Okay, are you ready for some Harlequin Desire book review by Maisey Yates, The Rancher's Wild Secret? 2 books in one. And this first book that I'm going to review for you is called The Rancher's Wild Secret. Enter the seductive world of Gold Valley Vineyards with 2 wealthy ranch romances in one book. The Rancher's Wild Secret, Emerson Maxfield is the perfect pawn for the rancher Holden McCall's purposes. She's engaged to a man solely to win her father's approval, and sheltered beauty never steps out of line until one encounter changes everything. Now this good girl must marry Holden to protect her family, or their desire could spell the downfall of them all. Okay, well, let's start this amazing book here, shall we? There's a little preface of what to expect, so I'm going to read that to you. "I'll tell you what," he said. "If I'm going to give you a kiss, and afterward you can walk away, then you should." She blinked. "I don't want to walk away." "See how that's after you feel after the kiss." He already knew. He already knew that he was going to have a hard time getting his hands off her once they'd been on her. She took a step toward him, those ridiculous high heels somehow skimming over the top dirt of the rocks. She was soft and elegant, and he was half dressed and sweaty from chopping wood, his breath a cloud in the cold air. She reached out and put her hand on his chest, and it took every last ounce of willpower not to grab her wrist and pin her palm to him, to hold her against him, make her feel the way his heart was beginning to rage out of control. He couldn't remember the last time he wanted a woman like this. Okay. Now we know the main characters' names. Let's start on page 18. "People will probably be noticing that you're gone. There's a party she's supposed to be at and she's not there." "I suppose they might." She wrinkled her nose. "Between you and me, I'm getting a little tired of these things. Parties with free food and drinks. How could you get tired of that?" She lifted one elegant shoulder. "I suppose when the drinks are always free, you lose track of why they're special." "I wouldn't know anything about that. He worked up for every damn thing he had." "Oh, of course. Sorry, that's an incredibly privileged thing to say." "Well, if you're who I think you are, you're incredibly privileged. Why wouldn't you feel that way?" "Just because it's true in my life doesn't mean it's not a tacky thing to say." "Well, I can think of several tacky things to say right that might make you feel a little bit better." She laughed. "Try me." "If you're not careful, Little Red, wandering through the wilderness like a big bad wolf might gobble you up." It was incredibly obvious, the over-sexual thing to say, and the little princess with her engagement ring glistening on her left hand should have drawn up in full rage. But she didn't. Instead, her body seemed to melt slightly, and she looked away. "Was that supposed to be tacky?" Page 19. "It was," he said. "I guess if it didn't feel that way to me, you should head back to that party," he said. "Why, am I in danger out here? Depends on what you call danger." There was nothing wrong, he told himself, with building a rapport with her. In fact, it would be a damn useful thing in many ways. Possibly talking to strange men in vineyards. Depends on whether or not you consider me strange. "I don't know you well enough to figure that out yet." A crackle of interest moved over his skin, and he didn't know what the hell was going on with him. The first time that he ever felt remotely anything interested in a hell of a long time was happening now. With Emerson Maxfield. But she was the one who took a step back. She was the one whose eyes widened in fear, and he had to wonder if it was his hatred for the blood that ran through her veins was as evident to her as it was to him. I have to go," she said. "I'm the party." "Yes, ma'am," he said. He took a step toward her almost without thinking, and she retreated as quickly as she could on those impractical stiletto heels. "You better run, Little Red," he said underneath his breath, and then he rocked back on his heels, surveying the grapevines and the house on the uphill. "The big bad wolf is going to gobble all of this up." Now that tells you the kind of rapport these two are already building between each other. It's a fiery passion that's uncontrollable, if you will. Okay, page 34. "What was that?" She maneuvered her horse back around in other directions. She stuffed her phone in the pocket that she carried on. It was me getting a photograph, she said, one that I can post. Something new and exciting coming to the Maxfield label. Are you really going to put it like that? Yes, I mean, eventually we're going to do press releases and other forms of media, but the way you use social media advertisements is a little different. I personally am a part of the online brand, and my lifestyle, including my clothes, is part of what makes people interested in the vineyard. Right, he said. People want to be jealous, she said. If they didn't, they wouldn't spend hours scrolling through photos of other people's lives, or houses they'll never be able to live in, exotic locations they'll never be able to go. A little envy, that bit of aspiration, it drives some people. This is page 35. The other was page 34. Do you really believe that? Yes, I think success of my portion of family empire suggests I know what I'm talking about. He didn't say anything for a long moment. You know, I suppose you're right. People choose to indulge in that feeling. But when you really don't have anything, it's not fun to see all that stuff that you'll never have. It cuts deep. It creates a hunger rather than enjoyment. It can drive some people to the edge of destruction. There was something about the way he said that sent a ripple of disquiet over her through her, because his words didn't sound hypothetical. And I'm going to leave you wondering what happened there, so you need to get this book to pick it up and find out what is going on. And no, we're not done with the book review. Take a deep seat. Page 41. Have you ever gone without something? She didn't know why she asked him that, except maybe that it was the only thing keeping her from actually giving in to her fantasy of him, is all I'm going to say. I don't really think that that's any of your business. Why not? I just downloaded all of my family issues onto you, and I'm not even sure why, except you ask, and I don't think anyone else has ever asked me. So it's just you and me out here. And your phone, which is your link to the outside world on a scale that I can barely understand. Somehow, that rang false. I don't have service, she said. Anyway, my phone is going back into my pocket. She slipped it into the pocket of her pants, and he looked at her with the dark eyes moving over her. Knew that his gaze was deliberately sexual, and she didn't feel like she could be trusted with that kind of knowledge, because something deep inside her was dancing around the edge of being bold, and that one little piece of her that felt repressed, that had felt bored at that party last night, that little piece of her wanted this. What did they want? You're going to have to find out by reading the book. Page 48. Texting Donovan had been insane. Leaning in towards Holden had been even more insane. She didn't even have time for any of this behavior. She had a campaign to launch, and what was she going to do? Because she knew exactly who she was. She was not the kind of person who kissed men she barely knew, not the kind of person who engaged in physical-only flings, not the kind of person who crossed professional boundaries. The problem was, Holden made her feel very, very not like herself. And that was the most concerning thing of all. Page 53. She tilted her head to the side, appraising him like he was a confusing piece of modern art. Are you married? Hell no, he said. No desire for that kind of nonsense. You think love is nonsense? She pressed. You didn't ask me about love. You asked me about marriage. Don't they usually go together? Does it for you? Because you nearly kissed me yesterday and you're wearing another man's ring. Great. He'd gone and brought that up. Not a good idea, all things considered, though it might make her angry, and if he could get her good and angry, that might be for the best. Maybe she would stay away. Did she stay away? You gotta read the book. Page 82. In a family like mine, it matters. My father doesn't have sons. His daughter has to marry men who respect and uphold the winery. His son-in-laws are going to gain a certain amount of ownership of the place, and that means his son-in-laws are going to gain a part of the ownership of the business? Yes, I mean, I'll retain my share as well, so don't think that it's kind of adrenocane nonsense, but when we marry, Donovan is going to get his share of the winery, as large as mine. When Rin marries, it will be the same, and then there's Cricket, and her husband will get a share as well, though not as large, and by the time that's all finished, my father will only have a portion. A very small portion. Who asked who about the winery, and why does it matter? You gotta read to find out. Page 142. I love this section. Can I believe in you? He found that he wanted her to believe in him, and he couldn't quite figure out why. Why should it matter that he not sweep Emerson into a web of destruction? Why had he decided to go about marrying her in the first place, when he could have simply wiped James Maxfield off the map? But no, he didn't want to question himself. Marrying her was a more sophisticated power play, and at the end of the day, he liked it better. He had possession of the man's daughter, he had a stake in the man's company, the sword of Damocles. After all, the ruination could be accomplished by only once, but this was a method of torture that could continue on for a very long time. His sense of satisfaction wasn't just because of Emerson. He wasn't so soft that he would change direction because of a woman he slept with a few times, though every night that he had her, he felt more than connected to her. He had taken great pleasure a few days ago when she broke her news to her new fiancé. Who are we talking about? We know Emerson, but who's the man she's with? To read, to know the answer to that question, the only way to do is read the book. 144. I got married, he said. Holden, she said, genuinely sounding pleased. I'm so glad. Did you fall in love? Love is wonderful when it isn't terrible. He swallowed hard. No, I married James Maxfield's daughter. She gasped at the sound sharp in his ear, stabbing with regret. Why? Well, that interesting part, he said. I now own some of the Maxfield vineyards, and Sonyaira, that's the sister of Holden, by the way. I'm going to make a wine and name it after you because he shouldn't be able to forget you or what he did to you. There was silence for a long moment. And I'm the one locked up for being crazy. What? Page 145. Did you hear yourself? You sound married somebody you didn't love. It's not love. It's about justice. He didn't deserve to get away with what he did to you. But he has. He has because he doesn't care. I've made him care. His daughter knows what kind of man he is now. He's a controlling share in his own winery. He's lost a controlling share in his own winery. He's also lost an alliance that he was hoping to build by marrying Emerson off to someone else. And the cost of those victories is your happiness, because you're not with a woman that you love. I was never going to fall in love, he said. It's not in me. Yeah, that's what I said too. Money was the only thing I loved until it wasn't. There was another long stretch of silence. I thought you would be happy. I'm getting a piece of this for you. I don't want it. You don't? You have to do what you have to do, she said. I guess so. He didn't know what to say to that, and for the first time he set out on this course, he questioned himself. Why? To know the answer to that, you have to read the book. Page 159. She was beginning to like her life with Holden more than like it. There was no denying the chemistry they shared. What happened between them at night was singular, like there was nothing else that she'd ever experienced. But it was the moments like that one, the little moments that happened during the day, that surprised her. She liked him, and if she was really honest with herself, she more than liked him. She needed him. She needed to somehow show him that she wanted more. Of course, she didn't know what more was, considering the fact that they were already married. She was still thinking about that, what she wanted, that what she could do, and when she saw Rin later that day, her sister. Have you ever been in love? Rin looked at her, jerking her head abruptly to the side. No, she said. Don't you think that you would have known if I'd ever been in love? I don't know. We really don't talk that kind of stuff. We talk about work. You don't know if I've ever been in love. Well, other than Holden, have you ever been in love? You've had boyfriends, but you haven't been in love. I didn't tell you I was in love with Holden. But you are, Rin said, which is why I assume you're asking me about love. Now, yes, Emerson said. Okay, I'm in love with Holden. And I need to figure out a way to tell him, because how do you tell a man that you want more than marriage? You tell him that you love him. It doesn't feel like it's enough. Anyone can say anything at any time they want, and that doesn't make it real. But I want him to see the way that I feel. I feel like it has changed. to know what happens next, you got to read the book. I love doing that to you. Page 162. What's all of this? I went to town and got a few things today. I see that. It's kind of a belated wedding gift. A belated wedding night. We had a wedding night. I remember it clearly. Not like this. Not, she reached next to her, pulling on a large velvet box, and we're missing something. She opened up the box and found a thick band of metal to a slimmer one. They're wedding bands, she said. One for you and one for me. What brought this on? He didn't really know what to say. He didn't know what to think about all of this. The past few weeks had been good between the two of them. That couldn't be denied, but he felt like she was proposing to him, and that idea was something he could barely wrap his mind around. I want to wear your ring, she said, and I guess I bought the rings, but this ring is mine, she said, pulling out the man's ring, and I want you to wear it. This ring is yours. This ring is yours. I want to wear it. She took the slim band and placed it on her finger, and then held the thicker one out for him. I've never been a fan of jewelry. You've never been one for marriage either, but there we are. I know we had a strange start, but it's been a good partnership so far, hasn't it? The work she had done on his sister's wine had been incredible. It was true. The care she had put into it surprised him. It hadn't simply been a generic nod to Sonia. Emerson had made something that somehow managed to capture his sister's whole personality, and he knew Emerson well enough to know that she had done it by researching who Sonia was, and when Emerson asked him about his sister, he knew that she cared. Their own mother didn't even care that much, but she seemed to bleed with her caring, with her regret that Sonia had been hurt, and now Emerson wanted rings, wanted to join herself to him in a serious way. Would he agree to it? To know, you gotta read the book. Okay, we're moving on to page 167. But he was selfish, down to his core. And he had manipulated her, blackmailed her. He was no different than her father. And now here she was, professing her love, and he was a man who didn't even know what that was. All this giving, all this generosity from her, and he didn't deserve it. Couldn't begin to, and he deserved it from her the least of all, because he had nothing to give back. He shuddered, his release taking him, stealing his thoughts, making it impossible for him to feel anything but pleasure, no regrets, no guilt, just bliss of being with her. And when it was over, she looked at him and whispered one more time, I love you, and that was when he pulled away. Oh, Holden. He sure knows when to walk away. She had known it was a mistake. She hadn't been able to hold it back, that declaration of love, because she did love him. It was true, with all of herself. And while she had been determined to show him with her body and her vows that she made with the rings that she bought, it just wasn't enough. She thought the words by themselves wouldn't be enough, but the actions without words didn't mean anything either. Not to her, not when there was this big shift inside her, as real and as deep as anything ever had been. She wanted for so long to do enough that she could be worthy. And she felt like some things had crystallized inside of her. Because of all those things, she craved that approval. It was surface. It was like a brand, the way that her father saw a brand, that as long as the outside looked good and as long as the external things were done, that was all that mattered. But it wasn't. Because she felt who she was in her deepest parts, those were the things that mattered, and she didn't have to perform or be good to be loved. She as a person was enough all on her own, and that was what Holden had become to her, and that was what she wanted for her life, for her marriage, not something as shallow as approval for a performance. A brand was meaningless if there was no substance behind it. A beautiful bottle of wine didn't matter if what was inside was nothing more than grape juice. A marriage was useless if love and commitment weren't at the center. That's page 169. Well, it looks like I have marked to continue on, so sorry about that. We'll continue on. It was those deep things, those deep connections, and she hadn't had them, not at all in her life, not really. She was beginning to forge them with her sisters, and she needed them from Holden, and if that meant risking disapproval, risking everything, then she would. She had, and she could see that her declaration definitely hadn't been the most welcome. Since she told him she loved him, everything was shut down, shut off. She knew well enough to recognize that. I don't know what you expect me to say. Traditionally, people like to hear I love you too, but I'm suspecting I'm not going to get that, so here's the deal. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know how I felt, how serious I am, and how much my feelings have changed since I first met you. Why? Because, she said, because you came into my life and turned it upside down. You uncovered so many things that were hidden in the dark for so long, and yes, some of them uncovering has been painful. But more than that, you made me realize what I really wanted from my life. I thought as long as everything looked okay, it would be okay, but you destroyed that. You destroyed the illusions all around me, including the ones that I had built for myself. Meeting you, feeling that attraction to you, it cut all of this. Bullcrap. I thought I could marry a man that I didn't even feel temptation to sleep with, and I met you. I felt more for you in those few minutes in the vineyard that night when we met than I had for Donovan in those 2 years that we'd been together. I couldn't imagine not being with you. It was like an obsession, and then we were together, and then you made me want things, made me do things that I never would have thought I would do, but those were all real parts of me, all that I am. Page 170. I thought that if I put enough makeup on, smiled wide enough, and put enough filters on the pictures that I could be the person I needed to be. But it's not who I am. Who I am is the woman I am when I'm with you, in your arms, in your bed, and the things you make me feel, the things you make me want. That's real, and it's amazing because none of these is about optics. It's not about pleasing anyone. It's just about me and you. It's so wonderful to have found this, to have found you. You didn't find me, honey. I found you. I came here to get revenge on your father. This isn't fate. It's calculated through and through. It started that way, she said. I know it did, and I would have never called it fate, because I don't believe that it was divine design that your sister was injured in the way she was. But I do believe that it was there to be a way to make something good out of something broken. Because if it wasn't there, then I don't know what your future could have you and I could possibly have in the future. There are things that make sense in this world. He said, emotion is not one of them. Money is. What we can do with the vineyard, that makes sense. We can build this together. We don't need any of the other stuff. And for you to know what the other stuff is, I want you to read the book. Page 173. He decides to give the wine shares back to Emerson. What? I'm giving it back. I'm giving it to you because it's yours and not mine. You would rather do that than try to love me. I never meant to hurt you, he said. That was never my goal. Whether you believe it or not, I don't have strong enough feelings about you to want to hurt you. And those words were like an arrow through her heart, piercing deeper than any other cruelty that could have come out of his mouth. It would have been better, in fact, if he had said he hated her. If he had threatened to destroy the winery again, if her ultimatum had made him fly into a rage, but it didn't. Instead, he was closed off and utterly impassive. Instead, he looked like a man who truly didn't care. And she would have taken hatred over that any day, because at least that would have meant he felt something. But she didn't get that. Instead, she got a blank wall of nothing. She couldn't fight this, couldn't push back against nothing. If he didn't want to fight, then there was nothing for her to do. Again, page 173. So that's it, she said. You came in here like a thunderstorm ready to destroy everything in your path, and now you're just letting me go? Your father is handled. The control of the winery is with you and your sisters. I don't have any reason to destroy you. I don't think you're being chivalrous. I think you're being a coward. Page 174. Cowards don't change their lives, don't make something of themselves the way I did. Cowards don't go out seeking justice for their sisters. Cowards do run when someone demands something that scares them, though, and that's what you're doing. Make no mistake, you can pretend you're a man without fear. You're hard in some ways, and I know it, but all hardness is just to protect yourself. I wish I knew why. I wish I knew what I could do. It won't last, he said. Whatever you think you want to give me, it won't last. Why do you think that? I've actually never seen anyone want to do something that wasn't ultimately about serving themselves. Why would you be any different? It's not me that's different, it's the feelings. But you have to be able to put your trust in feelings in order to believe in something like that, and I don't. I believe in the things you can see, the things you can buy. I believe in us, she said. You believe wrong. Darling. Pain welled up inside her. You're not the big bad wolf after all. At least he had the courage to eat Red Riding Hood all up. You don't even have the courage to do that. You should be grateful. You don't get to break my heart and tell me I should be grateful because you didn't do it in a certain way. The end result is the same, and I hope that someday you realize you broke your own heart too. I hope that someday you look back on this and realize we had love, and you were afraid to take it. And I hope you ask yourself why. Is it so much easier for you to cross a state because of the rage than it was for you to come across a room and tell someone that you love them? Ooh, page 175. What a good page that was. Moving forward. Page 179. Well, now I do for this, but when it comes to holding, your pride won't keep you warm at night, and you can't trade one man for another. Believe me, I tried. If you don't put this all on the line, you'll regret it. You'll have to sit by while he marries someone else, has children with her, and everything will fester inside you until it turns into something dark and ugly. Don't let that be you. Don't make the mistakes I did. Mom, who? It doesn't matter now. It's been too long. He probably doesn't even remember me anyway. I doubt that. All right, he remembers me, but not fondly. I love him, Emerson said. I love him, and I don't know what I'm going to do without him, which is silly because I've lived 29 years without him. You would think I would be just fine. When you fall in love like that, you give away a piece of yourself, her mom said, and that person always has it. It doesn't matter how long you had them for. When it's real, that's how it is. Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Hope that he gave you a piece of him. Hope that whatever he says, he loves you just the way you love him, and do more than hope. You're strong enough to come in here and stand up to your father to do what's right for other people. Do what's right for you, too. Emerson nodded. Okay, she looked around and suddenly laughter bubbled up inside of her. What? It's just a few weeks ago at the launch of the Select label, I was thinking of how bored I was, looking forward to my boring future, my boring marriage. I would almost pay now to be bored because at least I wouldn't be heartbroken. Oh, trust me, her mom said, as painful as it is, love is what gets you through the years, even if you don't have it anymore. You once did. Your heart remembers, and that it exists in the world, and when suddenly the world looks a whole lot more hopeful. Because when you believe that two people from completely different places can come together and find something that goes beyond explanation, something that goes beyond what you can see with your eyes, that's the thing that hope gives you in the darkest hour. Whatever happens with him. Yeah, Emerson said softly. I know. She did, because he was the reason she was standing here connecting with her mother now. He was the reason she was deciding to take this action against her father, and she wouldn't be the reason they didn't end up together. She wouldn't give up too soon. She didn't care how it looked. She would go down swinging. Optics be damned. And that's page 181. Yeah, it gets to me. Page 183. I abandoned my revenge plot. Emerson and I are going to divorce. You don't look happy, she said. I'm not. I hurt someone I didn't mean to hurt. Are you talking about me or her? He was quiet for a moment. I didn't mean to hurt either of you. Did you really just marry her to get back at her father? No, not only that. I mean, that's not why I married her. You look miserable. I am, but I'm not sure what that has to do with anything. It has to do with love. This is how love is. It's miserable. It makes you crazy, and I can say that. You're not crazy, he said fiercely. Don't say that about yourself. Don't think it. Look at where I am. It's not a failure, and it doesn't count, Sonia. There's no shame in having a problem. There's no shame in getting help. Fine, but what's your excuse? I got help, and you ruined your life. I'm not in love. You're not, because you have a terrible look about you. You know, like someone who just lost their heart utterly ripped out of their chest. He was quiet for a moment and took a breath. He listened to his heart beating steadily in his ears. My heart is still there, he said. Sure, but not your heart, the one that feels things. Do you love her? I don't know how to love people. How would we know what's real, healthy love look like? I believe that you love James Maxfield, but look where that got you. Weird. We all are busted up, broken up from the past, and how we're supposed to figure out what's real. That was page 184. Page 185. If it feels real, I don't think there's anything that is difficult to understand about love. When you feel like everything good about your life lives inside another person and they're wandering around the best with the best of you in their chests, then you don't want to be with them all of the time. You just don't want to be with them all of the time. And you're so afraid of losing them because if you do, you're going to lose everything interesting and bright about you. He thought about Emerson, of the way she looked at him, and he didn't know if what Sonia said was true, if he felt the best of him was anywhere at all, but he knew what for sure Emerson made him want to be better. She made him want something other than money or success, something deep and indefinable that he couldn't quite grasp. She said she loved me, he said. His voice scraped the raw emission unexpected. And you left her. I forced her to marry me. I couldn't. She loves you. She obviously not being forced into anything. I took advantage. You know, if you're going to go into worrying about taking advantage of women, it might be helpful if you believe them when they tell you what they want. You deciding that you know her better than she does is what's in your heart is not enlightened. It's just more of some man telling a woman what she ought to be, and that's acceptable, and what's acceptable for her to like and want. He hadn't quite expected that from his sister. She loves you. If she loves you, why won't you be with her? He thought about what Emerson had said when she called him a coward. Because I'm afraid and I don't know how to be in love, he said finally. This is page 186. It was the one true thing he'd said on that matter. He hadn't meant to lie. He hadn't known if he had, but it was clear as day to him now. Look at how we were raised. I don't give a damn thing about love. Or don't know a damn thing about love. You're the only one who ever did, Sonia said. Look at what you've done for me. Look at where I'm at. It's not because of me. No, he said, it's because of me. I got you started on all this modeling stuff. You went to the party where you met James. That's not what I meant. I meant the reason that I'm taken care of now, the reason I've always been taken care of is because of you. The reason Mom has been taken care of, that's you. All those families you gave money to, the houses too, and I know I've been selfish being here. I've had a lot of time to think. I know that sometimes I'm not lucid, but sometimes I am. And when I am, I think about how much you gave and no one gave it back to you. And I don't think that it's you don't know how to love, Holden. I think it's that you don't know what it's like when you love someone who loves you back. And you don't know what to do with it. He just sat there and stared because he had never thought of himself the way his sister seemed to. But she made him sound, well, kind of like not a bad guy. Maybe even someone who cared quite a bit. I don't blame you for protecting yourself, but this isn't protecting yourself, it's hurting yourself. Page 187. You're right. You might be right, he said, his voice rough. You might be right. Do you love her? He thought about that very way Emerson had looked at him in moments before he rejected her, beautiful, bare, his wife in every way. Yes, he said in a rough voice, I do. Then none of it matters. Not who her father is, not being afraid, just that you love her. Look what it did to you to be in love, he said. Don't you think I have the right to be afraid of it? Oh, she said, you're definitely right to be afraid of it. It's terrifying, and it has the power to destroy everything in its path. But the alternative is this. The kind of gray existence, the one that I'm in. The one that you're in. So maybe it won't work out, but what if it did? And then suddenly he was filled with a determination, a sense of absolute certainty. There was no what-ifs, because if he could turn it around with his actions, he was a man who had, as Emerson had pointed out, crossed the state for revenge. He could sure as hell do work required to make love last. It was a risk, a damn sight bigger risk than being angry, but he was willing to take it. Thank you, he said to his sister. Thank you, too, she said, for everything, even the revenge. Emerson is making a wine label for you, he said. It's pretty brilliant. Sonia smiled. She is? Yes. Let me get a sip of water before we continue. See, I told you, Emerson and Holden just get to me. Okay. Page 189. What are you doing here? I know I'm not on the guest list, he said. No, she said, you're not. In fact, you're supposed to have ridden off into the sunset. Sorry about that, but the sun is set. Holden, I was wondering if you need a ranch hand. What? The winery is yours. I want it to stay yours. Yours and your sister's. I certainly don't deserve a piece of it. I just thought the one time I had it right with you was when I worked here. When it was you and me, and not all this manipulation. So I thought maybe I would offer you just me. Just you? Yeah, he said, just me. I mean, you still have your property development money, I assume. Yeah, he said. But I also love you, and I was sort of hoping you still love me. She blinked hard. Her heart was about to race out of her chest. Gotta take another moment. Yes, she said, I love you still, I do. And all I need is you, not anything else. I feel the same way, you, just the way you are. It was quiet. It quit being about revenge, and when it quit being about revenge, I didn't have an excuse to stay anymore, and it scared the hell out of me. Because I never thought, that was page 189, this is page 190, that I would be the kind of man who wanted forever, and wanting it scared me, and I don't like being scared. None of us do. But I'm so glad that you came here, though, she said, because if you hadn't, I thought as long as everything looked good, then it was close enough to being good. I had no idea it could be like this. And if I had never met you, then I would have never known, had anything but money and anger. And believe me, compared to you, that's nothing. You showed me my heart, she said. You showed me what I really wanted. And you showed me mine. I was wrong, he said. When I said things couldn't be fixed, they can be. When I told my sister that I came here to get revenge, she wasn't happy. It's not what she needed from me. She needed love, support. Revenge just destroys. Love is what builds. Revenge just destroys. Love is what builds. I want to love you and build a life with you forever. So do I. She threw herself and wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him. So do I. Emerson Maxfield knew without a shadow of a doubt that a strong, handsome husband held in her arms that she was never going to be bored with her life again, because she knew now that it wasn't a party, a launch, a successful campaign that was going to bring happiness or decide who she was. No, that came from inside her, and that was enough. Who she was loved, Holden McCall, and whatever came their way, it didn't scare her because they would face it together. Page 191. She remembered that feeling. She had adrift, like she'd been nowhere to go, like her whole life had been untethered. But she had found who she was. She had found her heart in him. And she knew that she would never have to question where she belonged again, because it was wherever he was, forever. Oh, my land. Okay, it is time for a rating on the first book, Rancher's Wild Secret. Tomorrow you will get Hold Me Cowboy. Rancher's Wild Secret is going to get a 40. There's wild moments of passion, and I think that everybody ought to be over 18 to read the book, just saying. But there's also wild moments of love and desire, and it makes you see that when it matters, you don't just quit. The tough get going. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, he got revenge on her father. But at the same time, they found love along the way. And it was just amazing. What more can you say? It gets a 40. Tomorrow night, we will do Hold Me Cowboy. I'll show you the book that I have started reading. It's very good. And it's not quite as passionate yet. It's called Almost Perfect by Judy Duarte. It's another cowboy story. And what's most inspiring on this is they're best friends, and she's been cheated on by her ex-husband, and she has to figure out a way out of feeling like there's just work and that's it in her life. So stay tuned for when I do that book review. But when a book brings out that raw emotion, you know it's a dang good book. And plus, she's one of my favorite authors. I can't say that enough. You'll have to hold your seats for tomorrow's review of Hold Me Cowboy. And I might do Almost Perfect tomorrow night. So you have something to look forward to. I promise I'm going to try not to be so political going forward. It's hard because I'm a very passionate person myself when I get on a topic that bothers me, because I just feel like my voice is not being listened to. I feel like they're ignoring me, and my vote counted, and it should have counted with this stay-at-home order. Oh, anyway, I'm going to sign off for tonight, bid you a fond farewell. I might do a short video about where I was at last night and tonight, just to say howdy doody. Good night, y'all, on the book review. Thank you for tuning in. That means the most to me.